Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and it is again season 3 of the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derek Vance, and let me bring in the other two hosts of the Push to Pass podcast. Like I said, starting episode or starting rather season, not episode, season number 3, as you see right there. Josh Roberts over there to this side over here. There we go. And then down below, you see Michael Monroe as well. We've got our batteries recharged, and we are absolutely geeked for what's going to be a tremendous 2025 season. A lot of changes on the last time that we all gathered here together. And we'll talk about those changes, especially when it comes to where you're going to be able to see the whole 2025 NTT IndyCar season. Also, drivers changing driver boat of those as well. And then we'll also talk about some of the overall changes to the IndyCar itself, to the chassis charter system. I know we had a lot of discussion for that towards the end of last year, and then we had some testing, preseason testing, the last couple of days at Sebring. We'll run through those results if you have not seen those, and then right before the checkered flag drops on season number 3, episode 70. We're going to have our way too early predictions. We're going to go through and find out who we think is going to win the most races, who's going to win the most NTT P1 awards, who's going to have the most DNFs, and Josh's answer is not going to come as a shock to anybody. Spoiler alert there. And then who we think is going to be the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series champion. Is it going to be for the third straight year Alex Palou, or is there somebody in the paddock that's going to be able to knock off the Spaniard when it's all said and done there as the checkered flag drops in Nashville in late August? But before we get into all that, like we said, we do have the two returning co-hosts. We'll let them speak here a little bit. First, I'm going to throw things over to Josh Roberts.
Hello again, everybody. So glad to be back here for another season of Push to Pass podcast. We've steadily grown. I mean, we started out, Derek started this podcast out 3 years ago, doing a great job. And then I came on board. And then last year we brought Michael on board full time. And that was an awesome addition because, Derek was carrying the load. You know, he's the avid and big fan. And I'm just the casual fan that loves to talk about racing and anything sports. And then we brought Michael on, and he brought his expertise and his know-it-all stuff, which is awesome. We have spirited debates, and I'm excited about this season. In the past, I've been pessimistic about IndyCar and how NBC promoted them, but this year I'm excited with the addition of Fox coming on board and already showing a lot more, shall we say, initiative and go-getterness in advertising for their new series. So it's gonna be one heck of a season, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be back with you guys, Derek
and last
John.
and certainly not least, coming back for his, I think his first full season. He joined us at the middle of last year. Definitely pleasure to have him as well, returning again, Michael Monroe.
Yeah, I am very excited to be back with you guys. Derek, I met you at Detroit a couple years ago, and we kind of connected there. Last year you had me fill in a couple of times, and then you guys brought me in. Josh, thank you for all the kind words. I don't know how much knowledge I brought, but I'm glad to be a part of the podcast here. Love talking about IndyCar. I love talking about racing in general, whether it's IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One. Racing's getting started. Just had the Daytona 500, and my wife will tell you in this household, from February to the first weekend of December, I'm busy every weekend. I have stuff going on every weekend. So sometimes I have to watch on my phone or things like that. But yeah, I'm really excited to get the racing season started, especially the IndyCar season. So much potential coming up this season, and can't wait to talk about everything.
Yeah, definitely a lot to dig into there, Josh and Michael, for sure. I know we talked about this a little bit towards the end of 2024, but just for to you a little bit, it was revealed, like I said, toward the end of the 2024 season that Fox Sports is going to be the premier home of the NTT IndyCar series, obviously for this season and going forward. We thought this was a breath of fresh air, at least I did, for the IndyCar series. I think Fox is going to do a tremendous job, and they've already exceeded my expectations with these 3 commercials featuring 3 great drivers, ladies and gentlemen, that I could think Fox has put as the face of the NTT IndyCar series, and we'll play those commercials here shortly. But before we get to that, I'm curious to hear both Josh and Michael's thoughts on what they've seen from Fox so far as they hype up this season, which gets kicked off right there the first weekend in March down in St. Petersburg, in the streets of St. Petersburg. But before we get to that, again, want to get both your guys' thoughts on the job so far that we have seen during not only the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, but as Michael just alluded to there, the Daytona 500 this past weekend, where 2 drivers from the NTT IndyCar series, both Joseph Newgarden and Scott Dixon, were featured there as well.
Michael, you go ahead and give your thoughts first.
So yeah, Fox coming on board is very big. Derek and I were talking a little bit before we started about it, and honestly, for me, one of the biggest additions, we talked about the commercials in the Super Bowl, talked about the commercials, Daytona 500, having Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden talking about, the IndyCar series is awesome on that stage where millions and millions of people watch the Daytona 500, casual fans. So hopefully, the IndyCar series can get some of that draw over from the Daytona 500 to St. Pete. Be a little bit different racing, obviously, but yeah, I'm really excited. One of the big things about Fox Sports that a lot of people haven't talked about, and that is the addition of Bob Pockrass from Fox Sports. He is a phenomenal reporter. He does a great job, gets a lot of good insight. I see all the time people posting pictures of Bob Pockrass first thing in the morning in the media center and the last one to close up shop. So he puts a lot of time and dedication into what he does. And on the NASCAR side of things, it's crazy what he does. And I hope, I've already seen him post a lot of stuff about IndyCar. So he's definitely someone to follow on social media.
Yeah, just to piggyback off your thoughts there, Michael. I was very surprised sitting. I was working and watching the Super Bowl and just see an IndyCar ad pop up. We always talk about how how little to nothing that NBC had broadcast or put out as many commercials about IndyCar, just advertising, and for Fox to give up if you don't know, typically a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl is about $7 million. So for Fox to take 30 seconds and throw it out there for the whole world to see, I mean, everybody, the Super Bowl is pretty much probably the most televised show of all of the entire year, outside of a couple different things, maybe the World Cup occasionally here and there. But for them to commit 30 seconds to say, hey, IndyCar is here, we're going to be showing them it's phenomenal, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing for IndyCar. Also, one thing me and Derek were talking about earlier today, we looked over the schedule, and it's not like Fox is bringing IndyCar on, and they're going to be, oh well, we'll put them on FX or we'll put them on FS1. All of the races for IndyCar are going to be on Fox, and they have shifted NASCAR to FS1, so that's a big thing for IndyCar to be able to come in and be put on Fox and not one of the secondary channels like Peacock or MSNBC like NBC used to do. So I'm excited. Maybe on if NASCAR has an off week, and IndyCar's racing maybe a couple. I know Michael had talked about the commentator that they were bringing over. Maybe they could bring over a couple of the NASCAR commentators and get their view on how they like IndyCar and different aspects of that. So it's a great thing for IndyCar. It's a great thing that they've been able to negotiate with Fox. So I'm excited.
And what Josh has alluded to, if you don't know yet, looked at the schedule yet, and I found it absolutely amazing that, and I'll let Michael comment on this too, because I know we were talking about this before we came on, but how NASCAR is going to take a back seat to the IndyCar series. And what I mean by that is if there is a double weekend where IndyCar and NASCAR are both on Fox, IndyCar has apparently the pick of the litter. So they're going to be on the main Fox network while NASCAR goes to FS1. And I know there's also times that NASCAR is going to follow IndyCar, and then also they have a handful of races on Prime as well. So interesting how Fox is prioritizing IndyCar ahead of NASCAR. Michael, you want to touch in on that before we to the cool titles that we expect Fox that we definitely enjoy them.
Yeah, so before we got on, we kind of touched on this, and I did go through the schedule real quick. IndyCar, March 2nd, is at the Streets of St. Petersburg. Their race starts at 12 o'clock. They actually lead right into NASCAR at 3 o'clock. Then the following races that are a conflict would be March 23rd. Both IndyCar and NASCAR start at 3 o'clock. IndyCar is on Fox. NASCAR is on FS1. April 13th, Fox is on 4:30 for the IndyCar series and FS1 for NASCAR at 3 o'clock. May 4th, same kind of deal. NASCAR is on FS1 at 3:30. The IndyCar series is on at 1:30 on Fox. And that's the only conflicts with NASCAR. After that, we have one IndyCar race on a Saturday, Cup Series races on Sunday, and then Fox is done with NASCAR. So it's very interesting. I actually looked at the schedule because I was hoping that we could get the Indy 500 that led right into the Cup Series on Fox, but that's a prime race. So that'll be a big change for the NASCAR side of things. But for IndyCar, it's great to know where your race is going to be. I kind of wish we had consistent start times. We can't have everything, but I know when the IndyCar series is on, I turn to Fox. They're going to be there. So I think that's good. Like I told Derek before the start of this, this is make or break for IndyCar. They've got to see an increase in viewership this season. If not, it's going to be kind of rough for them. But I hope we see an increase in viewership. And I will like to see when NASCAR and IndyCar go head to head, how those numbers look as well.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point as well. and I think you're absolutely right in the make or break year for IndyCar, and I think that's why there's been some changes made, and we'll highlight those, like I said, later in the show. But I did touch on Fox and the tremendous job that they have done so far in promoting the NTT IndyCar series. And in the first commercial we're going to see does feature back-to-back two-time champion of the Indianapolis 500, Joseph Newgarden. A lot of buzz was around not only this commercial but IndyCar when Fox showed this commercial. So if you have not seen it yet, sit back and enjoy.
This is Joseph Newgarden. Joseph was conceived to win races. Stopped drinking milk at 2, picked it back up at 32. Good for strong bones. Tell that to his clavicle. Joseph's like an action hero who wins even when he loses. This is his wife, his Tuesdays, his hand-eye coordination. He might have the greatest jawline in sports.
He's not that handsome.
He even wrote a children's book about winning. America loved it. Joseph loves the smell of unleaded gasoline. He hates imperfection. He doesn't believe in magic, but on Sundays, Joseph flies. This is Joseph Newgarden. Welcome to the fastest racing on earth.
Fellas, your guys' reaction when you first seen this commercial, first commercial of 3 that Fox has dropped so far for the NTT IndyCar series.
Fantastic, and the cameo by Tom Brady there was actually when me and Derek went to a media day that was held here downtown Indianapolis at the convention center. Joseph talked about that. He said, he showed up on set and he didn't even know that Tom Brady was going to be there, and just the fact that Tom Brady was there on the same doing something a commercial that was basically for IndyCar, but featuring him. He said that was just like one of the coolest things he's ever saw. So I think that's really cool. And whoever came up with that was a genius. That's why Fox pays people the big bucks to get people in, because of commercials like that.
Yeah, it was the one commercial my wife said was the best in the Super Bowl. Not to be too graphical, but she thought it was absolutely hilarious. The sperm going across the screen, that caught her eye. It was pretty funny, just the whole commercial. And her being a big Tom Brady fan, we won't hold that against her. But she thought it was just a great commercial. And she said the IndyCar commercials were probably the best of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think I agree with your wife. I think they do rank right up there, but not to be outdone. Next, the two-time defending and undisputed NTT IndyCar Series champion, Alex Palou, got his commercial. Let's check that out.
This is Alex Palou, a conquistador of concrete from the start. Alex grew up practicing kissing girlfriends to be ready for the day he'd meet bricks. Alex is so fast he does his taxes January 1st. He speed reads 2 novels before noon. He's Spanish, but he'll French kiss on the first date. Racing's what he thinks about in awkward silences. Racing's what he thinks about when people aren't talking about racing. Racing's why he's a grown man haunted by milk. Alex has traveled the world. Here are his favorite places: Portland, Detroit, Monterey, Portland again, and rent-free in 32 drivers' heads. This is the front of his car. But if you race him, you'll just see the back. This is 3-time IndyCar champ Alex Palou. Welcome to the fastest racing on earth.
Definitely loved that, as well as it took a shot across the bow there, so to say, to the other 32 drivers, highlighting who the champion is, the back-to-back champion seeking back-to-back-to-back, which would put him obviously in rarefied air. We'll talk about that here momentarily. But Josh, thoughts on the Alex Palou commercial?
It was hilarious, especially the the reference to being terrified of milk. It's kind of an insider thing. You got to be you gotta follow IndyCar to understand what the milk is, and the fact that it's eluded him, and it was hilarious, and I liked seeing him. We see him on Sundays, and he's this machine that just drives, and to be able to show some personality a little bit, putting into the commercial was awesome. So I loved it. I can't wait to see if he can be the first. Well, I don't know if he'll be the first, but see if he can go back to back to back on series championships. And I mean, he's got to be the favorite. So we'll see.
Yeah, another great commercial by Fox. Yeah, I think all my interactions with Alex Palou, he's been that chill, calm guy. He's really laser focused. So, like Josh said, to see some personality that you don't see normally at the racetrack was pretty funny. The smell, that got me. I think they're highlighting some of the lead candidates. There's definitely a couple I wish there was commercials for, and maybe we'll get those later on. But yeah, definitely highlighting the IndyCar series and the names and the faces that they want to really focus on are pretty spectacular.
Yeah, Michael, I think you come up with a great point that there are other drivers that I would like to see highlighted as well, that I think would have some personality, as you said, or as Josh alluded to there with Alex Palou. But hopefully we'll get those during the season. The one I think I enjoyed the most, and this is my unbiased opinion, old viewers of the show know exactly where my loyalty lies. But I thought the best of the three commercials, and again, I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree, but Pato O'Ward, who I think is a amazing driver, and I think he's definitely going to be the upcoming face of IndyCar, him and Alex Palou for years to come. He got a commercial as well.
This is Pato O'Ward. His last name's Irish, but his first words were... Pato's the fastest 25-year-old on four wheels. He's can't miss TV for everyone but his own mother, and he's tasted every kind of victory except for the lactose variety. Pato looks like a one-man boy band. He charms like a British spy. He smells like burnt rubber. And he doesn't have fans. He's got groupies. So take a look at the next face of IndyCar, because whether you love him or love him, he's about to turn this whole sport upside down. This is Pato O'Ward. Welcome to the fastest racing on Earth.
I thought something that I thought Fox alluded to, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, featuring two of the three drivers that they did, but you guys notice that the two of the three they featured struggle when it comes to the Indianapolis 500. First, you have Alex Palou, who just gets horrible racing luck when it comes to the month of May, especially in the 500. And then what Pato O'Ward has had to endure the last 2 years, wrecking with about 7 laps to go. And then last year doing everything humanly possible in a race car, but still not being able to defend off Joseph Newgarden. So I thought Fox kind of revolved it all around the struggle of, Alex Palou can do this, and this. But when it comes to the 500, that's where the demons kind of catch up with him. And so with Pato O'Ward, he has the big following. He has the big team behind him in Arrow McLaren. But when it comes to the biggest race on the series, the Indianapolis 500, that's where it seems like Pato comes up just a little bit short. And I thought I thought Fox did a great job in highlighting that during both commercials for Palou and for O'Ward. Josh, thoughts on the Pato O'Ward commercial?
Oh, I thought it was awesome. Yes, it is interesting that they put in there the two drivers they've had some struggles at Indy, and but they're I think that'll come back more in May. One of the other things I loved is they're going towards a different demographic. I know not demographic, but trying to get the Hispanic and Spaniard, the Latin American aspect in there with Pato and the dubbed over Spanish that they had him speak, that they had his little baby speaking. So it's awesome. It shows to me. I never saw like with sorry, I'm losing my thought, but with each driver that I've seen, I see them in a professional manner. They're stoic on Saturday. They're laser focused, as I said, with Alex Palou, and to be able to, get on set and be a little bit more, have a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more life to you, shows that, hey, I'm not just a driver. I can go out here and I can be funny. Peyton Manning was always the cerebral assassin, but then he started doing commercials, and a lot more people loved him. Us as Americans, we love a great sports figure, but we also love to see them go outside of their comfort zone. So Pat McAfee, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady starting to do it more. So I think with them with Fox showing more character, more hey, we're not just drivers, we can go out and do other stuff. I think that's going to be great for the series. So these are awesome commercials, and my favorite was Polo. I know Derek, you love Pato because you've been a Pato fan ever since he came on, and it's going to be a great season. I'm excited.
Michael, before you chime in, Josh, I see the Triple H reference you made there with the cerebral assassin. I followed that, but Michael, curious, get your thoughts on wrapping up the commercials that Fox has done so far, particularly with Pato Award.
Yeah, Pato, kind of being the face of the IndyCar series is definitely, what they're pushing for there. Definitely think that when I look at the three commercials, they're all pretty much, I don't want to say they're the same, but they kind of have those same references like you talked about. One driver's great at the Indy 500, one's scared of milk because poor Alex Palou gets to the Indy 500 and it's like he's never run an oval in his life at times. And then you do have Pato, who's kind of in between there. He's close to winning, but the heartbreak every year, it seems like. So yeah, great commercials. Would have liked to have seen a few more drivers, especially some of the newer drivers, some of the older veteran drivers. But I do like the direction Fox is going. Getting commercials out there, seeing IndyCar commercials on TV is definitely something to be excited about as an IndyCar fan and someone who covers the sport. It gives us another avenue to reach people and to talk about.
And to your point, seeing commercials means that IndyCar's right around the corner, and obviously we do all get excited for that. But I know, Michael, you touched on a little bit ago, you on putting your NASCAR hat on for a minute. I was excited to see Fox feature two IndyCar drivers this past weekend for their coverage of the Daytona 500 because having IndyCar wants to get those eyeballs that Fox creates with broadcast 500. People might recognize him being a two-time Indianapolis 500 champion, and then also put it out there at the Daytona 500 as well. I thought it was a good touch by Fox to not only hype up the upcoming season, but again get those extra viewers, those eyeballs, as we say, to the sport and to IndyCar as well. Josh and Michael, want to get your thoughts on both Joseph Newgarden and Scott Dixon representing IndyCar at the Daytona 500 this past weekend. Michael, Josh, any thoughts on that at all?
awesome the fact that that NASCAR would have them. I know it's probably more of Fox that had them, but IndyCar being on NASCAR is a great crossover thing, and I hope that it brings more viewers. Maybe IndyCar can return the favor and bring some of the NASCAR guys over. Maybe I know he's not a driver, but maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Jr. could come do some reporting or some announcing. But I love this. I can't say it enough. I love this partnership between Fox and IndyCar.
Yeah, Josh, I think you're absolutely right. I think the partnership with Fox and having some of the NASCAR guys come over is definitely a possibility. Whether they are in an announcing role or just being present at maybe the Indy 500 since Fox doesn't have a race that day, or perhaps maybe one of the great NASCAR announcers, Mike Joy, maybe he can step in the booth and call a few laps of the Indy 500. That would be really cool. When I think about Joseph and Scott being there, it kind of got me excited. Maybe that, with Joseph Newgarden's boss being, Roger Penske, having 3 Cup Series cars, in the Daytona 500. Maybe we see Joseph Newgarden attempt the Daytona 500, and then Scott Dixon, he runs the 24 hours of Daytona, with Jimmy Johnson being around. He's good friends with Jimmy Johnson. Maybe we get, Scott Dixon in a car now that Jimmy Johnson is a majority owner of Legacy Motor Club. So those are all super, super cool things to look forward to. And I know we're probably going to segue into this, but having a 4-time Indy 500 champion in the Daytona 500 was definitely another way to get eyeballs on the sport.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the punch, Michael. Yes, Elio Castroneves was in the Project 91 entry there for Trackhouse Motorsports. I thought he adjusted very well to NASCAR. Obviously, just didn't quite have the horses there, as I believe Elio. I think he finished 38th. If memory serves me correctly, but obviously, what an ambassador to have going over to NASCAR to represent in all the IndyCar drivers currently in the sport than Elio Castroneves. Josh, I don't know if you caught the race or not, but Michael, you want to talk about what you've seen from Elio in that Trackhouse entry that I believe finished 30.
Yeah, so Trackhouse, their car was fast at times. I feel like qualifying Elio, just with these next gen cars, you just honestly, it's all about getting off the pit road. And I just feel like he wasn't up to pace. You have to really get those motors wind up with the tapered spacer. So I feel like that's probably where he lost a lot of time in qualifying. Then we go into Thursday night's duels. He gets crashed out. Then he's coming back to pit road. And you can really, and this is not a knock on Elio by any means, because what he's done in racing in general is phenomenal. But you can really tell his lack of experience with the next gen car. When the right rear toe link was broken, he tried to get onto the apron and it just shot the car up the racetrack, and he hit the wall. It really ended his night in the duel. And then I think he was a ping pong ball in the ARCA series race. I feel like he ran really well. He learned a lot. I know from listening to interviews, he learned a lot in the ARCA race. Then, Sunday, I was watching his onboard camera, listening to his team back and forth. He felt like he was just riding there for some time. And then there was an accident. Denny Hamlin kind of lost it, saved the car. But unfortunately, his teammate, Ross Chastain, just caught him in the left rear and really ended his race before the race really even got going. So, it's a heartbreak for him. I do hope he comes back in some form, whether it's a road course or, whether it's, back at the Daytona 500. There's been a lot of talk on the NASCAR side about, this open exemption, which really guaranteed Elio a spot in the Daytona 500. And I'm kind of on the fence on both sides of it. I'd love to hear your guys' take, coming more from the IndyCar side. What if last year we decided that, hey, Kyle Larson's never been in an IndyCar. Let's just go ahead and give him one of the 33 spots, or better yet, we'll just open up a 34 spot, and no matter what, Kyle Larson is just put into it. So I'd really like to hear you guys' thoughts, as well as your take on Elio and the 500 and his Daytona Speed Weeks.
For me, Elio being in the race was fantastic.
Hailing the prior obligation that I had scheduled. But I did catch Jules, or it may have been one of the practices, and he definitely alluded to, Michael, what you were talking about getting off pit road and accelerating. He was having issues with that. So I know that was a work in progress. And, obviously when your teammate takes you out at the beginning of the race, kind of does put you behind the 8-ball. So to say, but I think it's an interesting point you brought up too about allowing offset drivers like this to be in NASCAR. Obviously, you got the drivers week in and week out that are not to say Elio's not doing this, let's say, but drivers that are continuously trying to make the show and get sponsorships, and the Elio comes in and it's just given a spot, so to say. So I definitely see the point there. But a lot of that was built around what Kyle Larson did last year as well, because you think about some of the guys that couldn't make the 500, but Larson with the Aero McLaren Hendrick equipment that he had was able to make the 500. So I do see the argument from one to the other, and I do see the argument from NASCAR to IndyCar. So definitely something I think that's going to be looked into and maybe discussed later down the road, if that does start to become an issue. Josh, anything else you want to add to that?
Just first, I wanted to congratulate Jimmy Johnson on coming in third in the Daytona 500. I know he was in IndyCar for a couple of years, and he's predominantly there for a little while. He dominated NASCAR, but for him to come back and I think he'll be driving on limited basis. Just the fact to be able to get up there and finish third as much as least as he's raced in the last couple of years. That's awesome. But the exemption for I think it's a double-edged sword for somebody. I think on one half, having Castroneves in there and him taking one of the spots, or they just added spots. It helps get more viewers. I would imagine a couple more, even if it's like 1,000 or some odd, just to see, just people that tune in just to see, hey, how good can the 4-time IndyCar 500 Indy 500 champion do? Whether they wanted to see him fail or they wanted to see him succeed, getting eyeballs on motorsports in general is always a good thing. But then, like Derek brought up, what if they just opened up a spot and gave it to somebody in for the Indy 500? I think there'd be a protest if that happened. I think that for some reason, I just think as big as the Daytona 500 is, I think the traditions with the Indy 500 is is they're so much more ingrained in the thing, and I don't think they would ever do that. So it's a double-edged sword. I know I can't remember which driver it was, but there was a driver that spoke up, and they were like, oh, why don't we add a 40-second car, why don't we add 5 more cars? Why not? So I don't think they were too happy that Helio was able to get get a free ride in there, but you know, I thought it was awesome of Castroneves to go out there and try and see what he could do. He ended up finishing 39th. That's only, he didn't come in last, but he didn't cut, but he was the second to last. So it was good. It was good. Like I said, I didn't get to see the race because I was working a lot. But just the fact that he was there was an awesome thing and brought some eyeballs, whether it be good eyeballs or bad eyeballs. Viewership for any auto racing, auto racing sports is always a good thing for me.
Michael, I know you had to log back in shortly. I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like it was a great weekend for Elio. I know it didn't end the way he wanted to. The open exemption, like I said, I'm here or there for it. I can see both sides of it. Josh, like you said, with the eyeballs on the sport, I think it was great for NASCAR. I think that's what they want from it. Is it the right way to get fans? I don't know. But at the same time, it's a policy they have, so we'll see what happens in the future. Like I said, I'd love to see more IndyCar drivers give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely can't wait to see what the upcoming NASCAR races, specifically the Daytona 500, have in store for the IndyCar drivers. Before we get into reviewing the new drivers and new places, let's thank for the third year 2 sponsors that are coming back as again. Sponsoring for the third year in a row. Like I said, the Push to Pass podcast. First and foremost, huge thank you to Always Ready 1776. If you're looking for patriotic apparel, headwear, and more, go check out Always Ready 1776, and you can find them on the web at alwaysready1776.com. And if you do find something that you like to purchase, use, as you see right there, the promo code Push to Pass for 10% off of your order. Also, huge thank you for the third year in a row to Gettum Associates. For all of your home design, build, and remodeling needs, it's Gettum Associates, and you can find them on the web at gettum.com. If you do decide to go with their services, use the promo code there, Push to Pass, for $250 off any design service. So huge thank you both to Always Ready 1776 and Gettum Associates for being proud sponsors of the Push to Pass podcast. Getting back to the season review. Now we are going to drive changes, team changes that have taken place during this off season. And ladies and gentlemen, I can say with 100% unequivocally that there have been a boatload of changes for the 2025 season. Drivers coming, drivers going. We're going to run through them all. We're going to talk about each one here a little bit. First, we're going to start with, I think, what Michael's favorite racing team is here. Dale Coyne Racing, obviously, a lot was talked about them last year where we felt that they just threw a dartboard up there and all of the free agents' pictures were on that dartboard, and that's how Dale Coyne decided who was going to be driving for him for that particular week, wherever the dart landed on. But to start the season, you're going to see 2 new drivers that have never driven for Dale Coyne Racing. First, coming over from the NXT series by Firestone, you're going to hear somebody that's very familiar. If you did follow that series, Jacob Abel is going to be one of the 2 drivers at Dale Coyne Racing. And then the second one coming over from Ed Carpenter Racing, released right there towards the end of the year, is Renus VK. So 2 new drivers there at Dale Coyne Racing. Josh or Michael, you want to give your thoughts on both of those guys?
Go ahead, Michael.
So Dale Coyne Racing, I think they listened to this podcast because we talked about there towards the end of the season. They need consistency. They have to find drivers that can make them consistent. They are doing that. Hopefully they can stick with both these drivers with sponsorship, things like that. Arenas VK coming in with some experience or a lot of experience, especially at the Indy 500, is really going to elevate that team. And then to help, develop a rookie with a, not a full, fully funded team like Penske or Chip Ganassi, but for those two drivers, it's going to be a big change for Arenas. He's been with the same team for 4 or 5 years. So it's going to be a big change for him, but his leadership, he's still young, but for his leadership, I think will really help, elevate that team. And, Jacob Abel coming in, he was a big prospect from the NXT series. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think the consistency alone will help that team be elevated for sure.
Yeah, let's hope they took the dartboard down and they're just going to stick with these two drivers. Hopefully, they're Dale Coyne. They were so topsy turvy last year. Let's just hope that the dartboard was taken down, thrown in the trash can, and that these two drivers can come out and be consistent all year, and that they don't have to go and try to find a new driver every week just to fill cars.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, like you said, like you both alluded to, Dale Coyne is able to keep both of these drivers, rookie Jacob Abel and veteran Renus VK, in the fold for at least the 2025 season. New driver over at Meyer Shank Racing. I think he became a casualty when Chip Ganassi, which on a side note, and I know both of you know this, but a huge thank you out there to Chip Ganassi. He did like one of our articles that was posted on yournews.com previewing his racing team. So huge thank you to Chip for that. But casualty of Chip downsizing a little bit at Chip Ganassi Racing this year was Marcus Armstrong, who now moves over to the Meyer Shank stable. So thoughts on Marcus Armstrong, second year driver moving from Chip Ganassi Racing over to Meyer Shank?
I think it'll be an interesting transition for him. I know the chassis are all the same, but leaving Chip Ganassi and going over to it's not a lesser team, but it's a less. No, I don't want to say they're not lesser. They're just not. They're not the pedigree of Chip Ganassi. So I think it'll be an adjustment. There may be one or two things that he had at Chip Ganassi that he may not have at Meyer Shank, but I think that if he can just put his head down and just keep going, I think he'll have a great season.
Yeah, second full-time season for Marcus Armstrong. He did run the road courses and street courses 2 years ago. Ran full-time last year with Chip Ganassi. The downsize comes, as we'll talk about in a little bit, from the charter system. So that's a big thing. One of the reasons not only Marcus Armstrong but Linus Lundqvist don't have a ride. Linus doesn't have a ride this year. But coming over to Meyer Shank, they have that technical alliance with Chip Ganassi, which so kind of keeps him in the Chip Ganassi kind of stable. It'll be interesting to see how he does this year. I know his driver, he has a new driver coach this year. I'm not exactly sure who it is, but I do know he has a new driver coach. Maybe that could help, a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. I have high not expectations, but I could see him becoming very successful just from his F2 days. So we'll definitely see. I hope he can, progress from his rookie year.
Yeah, definitely wish Marcus Armstrong the best over there at Meyer Shank as he teams up with Felix Rosenquist. What a shakeup a year makes at Juncos Hollinger Racing. Going into last year, you had Augustine Canapino, and you see the dark cloud that kind of hovered over him all year. He did not come back, and neither did Roman Grosjean. So what does Juncos Hollinger go out and do? They sign the native, Noblesville native, who actually did race for them towards the end of last year, Connor Daly. And then also they bring Josh's favorite driver into the fold as well as Stingray Robb. So Connor Daly, Stingray Robb, two new drivers at Juncos Hollinger Racing for 2025.
Well, I'm glad to see Connor got a full-time ride. I think he's a great guy. He was very funny at media day. Just the interaction he had with other drivers and with the media that were asking questions, both in the room and then on there were some on Zoom that were asking. So glad he's got a full-time ride. As for my favorite driver, Stingray Robb, I'm still holding out hope that he's going to have a bounce back season. I don't know. I like the long shots, and he seems to be one of the biggest long shots, and I think he's got the talent. I just hope he can put it all together this year and rise from the ashes like a phoenix and compete for some P1, P1s, P2s, P3s, and maybe get a top 10 finish here and there, just to keep building on his career.
Yeah, very interesting lineup for Juncos Hollinger Racing. Josh, I love Stingray. I love his faith. I love his beliefs and his morals. But at this rate in his career, third season, third team, I'm hoping for top 15s at this point. He's had some rocky races. I want to see consistency from him. I hope with a veteran. I feel like Connor Daly's been around for 30 years. We always hear about Connor. I know he's not, but he's got that leadership in him, kind of with Renus VK. So for that leadership, this is going to be a make or break year for Stingray Robb. I believe he's going to have to be competitive, at least with Connor. You're always matched with your teammate. He's going to have to be right there. If Connor's running, top 10, leading a few laps here in races, you're going to expect Stingray Robb to be right up there with him. So, Connor showed a lot of praise and for the team. And he showed what the team can be capable of towards the end of last year, getting them back into the leader circle. So those are things, Connor is able to do. So now we're going to have to see if Stingray can step up and be there with him.
A lot of shakeup, I think, in this next stable. Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. What a roller coaster it has been over at that program, I think, for the last couple years. They have a mainstay of Graham Rahal. We talked about this a little bit last year. Is the hourglass starting to run empty on him? Is he starting to move on to another endeavor? He's coming back for another season. We'll see how many more he has left in him. But Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan adds two drivers this year. One friend of the show, Devlin DeFrancesco. So he sat out last year. He is in the fold with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan for 2025. And then fellow NXT or Indie NXT by Firestone star Louis Foster is going to be taking his rookie season at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. So you have a veteran there with Rahal, and then you have you have somebody that has a lot of potential yet to show it with DeFrancesco, and then with Louis Foster, who's just getting his feet wet in the NTT IndyCar Series. So a lot of change, I think, in 2025 over at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan.
Yeah, a lot of change. I'm glad to see Devlin got a full-time gig. I know he was teasing different stuff last year when he came on the couple times he did, and he was looking for that full-time ride, and he finally got it. I hope he does good. He was always kind to us while he was on the show, and Louis Foster coming in from the NXT series. gonna get a full-time ride this year. I mean, I don't know much about him, so I wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully one of those three drivers can pull away a win this year and help out and help out Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing.
My big thing for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan is consistency. Man, what a roller coaster! You alluded to it, Derek. They've had, they've got this season. I don't want to be on this podcast talking about what Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan car is leaving for the Indy 500. I mean, this is 2 years in a row. They've been, pretty crap at the Indy 500. So, we have to see improvement on that side of things on the ovals. Realistically, you just have to see overall improvement. Man, to bring in two new drivers, Devlin, he's ran a couple years ago with Andretti, took last year off. Hopefully, can bring some of the experience they had with Andretti over. Still a Honda, so that's some things change as far as engine manufacturers, but that stays the same. And then for Louis Foster, it's just picking up little pointers, getting that experience from Graham. Even Devlin will have some pointers for him. So yeah, I think it's just consistency. Wherever it's you can't make a slow car go fast, but you can keep it consistent. So if you got Graham running consistently top 15, 16, you want your other two cars right there with them. Kind of the same with Juncos Hollinger, so I think they need giant steps, but let's take some baby steps to begin with and work our way to the giant steps to where you can there wasn't 2 or 3 years ago Graham won I think at the streets of Detroit back when it was on Belle Isle. So, you have to get back to that winning way, but, slowly getting there. Everyone wants, your favorite team or your favorite driver to jump, from, running 15th, 20th to winning races. Well, it's not that way. We have to slowly get there. If we're starting the season in the mid-teens, let's get to the, low teens before we start getting into winning. So, yeah, that's an organization to definitely watch for sure.
This next organization, I think Michael used the word that he kind of stole from me in talking about make or break. This team we've been talking about the last couple years. They've had veteran drivers, they've had rookie drivers. And I think it's got to be make or break. They lost Gavin Ward this offseason as well, one of the head honchos over at Arrow McLaren, and they did add Nolan Siegel towards the end of the year. I know we talked a little bit about that, but they also added they lost one driver, and they added Christian Lundgaard coming over from Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing now to Arrow McLaren. And fellas, talking about Arrow McLaren as a whole, obviously adding Christian Lundgaard, adding Nolan Siegel towards the end of last year. You see they're going in the young gun type vision right now. And then obviously the face of Arrow McLaren, obviously Pato Award. Is it safe to say, not only for Christian Lundgaard, but for the whole Arrow McLaren organization, as Michael alluded to a little bit ago, is it make or break time for Arrow McLaren and their drivers?
I wouldn't say it's make or break. I think I think they need to start showing more consistency. Pato is, with Pato being advertised as one of the three top drivers. Obviously that's what Fox looks at him like, and so he is one of the three top drivers. So that in turn is kind of making it seem like Arrow McLaren is a top three organization, which they are. They can't. Well, they have the ability to be. I know Zach Brown has a lot of faith in his drivers, and he wants all the best. They just have to show more consistency this year. Pato's got to be competing up there for the championship. Nolan being this. I'm not sure how many years he's been driving, but he's got to be improving every week and every race. So I don't think it's a make or break, but I think it is a big year for Arrow McLaren to come out and show what they can do, and that they can be as consistent as some of the other big. You've got Chip Ganassi and Penske. So if they want to continue their momentum, Pato's going to have to win a couple races. Christian Lundgaard, he's going to have to come out and be spectacular. And Siegel, he's got to finish races.
I think the name of this episode could have been consistency. Josh, I think you're right on the consistency part. I actually feel this season for Arrow McLaren, we're going to see something that a lot of fans aren't going to like, and it is a new face of Arrow McLaren. I feel with how fast Christian Lundgaard was in a Rahal Letterman Lanigan car on road courses, Pato's got his work cut out for him to be consistent with Christian Lundgaard. Lundgaard was the only bright spot at Rahal Letterman Lanigan last year. Actually, the last 2 years, to be honest. So I think Pato's got a lot of work ahead of him to be competitive with Christian on the road courses and street courses, to be honest. Nolan Siegel, yeah, the way the contracts at Arrow McLaren work, he's got to come out stronger than he was last season. I think he's got a lot of pressure on him. You get that papaya on you, and it's pressure cooker time. So I think it's big for Nolan Siegel. He's got to come out strong. Christian Lundgaard comes out strong, and Pato being Pato, Pato puts in the work. Let's be honest. So that is going to be an interesting dynamic. Derek, you talked about the young guns. This might be one of the youngest teams as far as driver lineups, with at least with three drivers. I would have to double check that, but they're all pretty young, and they're hungry. Arrow McLaren's hungry. Now, you also alluded to it, Derek. What does Gavin Ward leaving do to that organization? Do they lose speed because of that? And that's going to be the biggest question mark, I think, of their season.
Yeah, definitely something to watch. The next stable we have coming up here, this gentleman had himself set up to be in that aforementioned Papaya Orange, but a unfortunate accident right before St. Petersburg kind of set this gentleman's season back really all year. But David Malukas going over to join Coyote Red and AJ Foyt Racing with Santino Ferrucci. What an interesting duo that's going to be with Malukas and Ferrucci. But David Malukas coming over, going from a He was going to drive a Chevy. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition. And then going back to Chevy with AJ Foyt. So hopefully this gets David Malukas there off the snide and kind of gets his season rolling, because we can see what David Malukas can do with the right equipment, especially on a oval.
Oh yeah, definitely. Malukas, like you alluded to, his season kind of hit a snag right there before the beginning of the season, and just never got back on track. And I think going over to AJ Foyt Racing is going to be a big help for him. He can being under a multiple time Indy 500 winner in AJ Foyt. That is a wealth of knowledge right there that I don't think that many drivers can say they have on their team, with AJ being, because ultimately the every year, if you ask every driver what would they rather, win the championship or win the Indy 500, they all would probably say Indy 500. But and Santino Ferrucci, he's also he's a bit wacky. He's a bit of a wacky guy. His hair's a little wacky sometimes. To me, it just every time I see him. But he was doing pretty good a couple of years ago at the 500, but just didn't come to fruition. So that's a strong two-man tandem there for AJ Foyt, and it'll be interesting to see how they do this year.
Yes, I agree with you, Josh. Having that knowledge for the Indy 500 is going to be big. Malukas is amazing on ovals, and Santino is really well. Towards the end of last year, we've seen that Santino's figured out the road courses and street courses, getting a pole P1 award last year. So I think that's where they're going to struggle the most, and struggle, mightily sometimes, is going to be on those road and street courses. But at the same time, when it comes to ovals, I think I picked Malukas every oval I could last year, because one of these ovals he's going to get a win. And as crazy as the Indy 500 is, I wouldn't be shocked to see it be that race. And with the alliance with Team Penske, how much info is AJ Foyt getting now from that? And, a lot of swirling rumors is, Malukas, moved into that position to replace somebody at Penske. Will Power's in a contract year. So what's Will's future look like? Is this the last season we have Will Power at Team Penske? Is this the last season we have Will Power in the IndyCar series? He's getting up there in age. I don't want to call him old by any means, but I mean, he's been around for a long time. I mean, when I got into the IndyCar series, I thought it was the coolest name. And that's one of the reasons I gravitated to Will Power. There's no secret here. I am a Will Power fan. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to look at.
And we just have a couple more here to review. Our next one, a lot of turnover here at Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Carpenter was able to bring in a Indiana businessman, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. A lot of new sponsorship, a lot of primary sponsorship for both of these cars, but Ed Carpenter staying with Christian Rasmussen, but then teaming him up with veteran and another former winner of the Indianapolis 500, and the last rookie to do it, if memory serves me correctly, in Alexander Rossi. I think this is a great move for Rossi, getting with Ed Carpenter, the veteran leadership that Ed brings, that can be able to combine that with what Rossi brings to the table, and then taking Christian Rasmussen under his wing and giving a little bit of tutelage. So I think Ed Carpenter has kind of reshaped Ed Carpenter Racing, and I think it all starts with bringing in Alexander Rossi.
Definitely. Rossi coming in, this being his either ninth or 10th year. He's been around the circuit for a long time, so that's a good veteran move by Ed Carpenter to bring him into the fold, and hopefully, I know Rossi's looking to win some more races and put Ed Carpenter back up there on the podium. I mean, there's not much more I can say. Rossi's proven that he can drive, and given the chance, he can certainly go out and win races.
I will go on the counterattack and say, I don't know about this move. I just don't know. Money's great. Having the sponsorship security and the financial backing is great. I was never one to see the hype in Alexander Rossi. I think he's a great driver. I don't think he's won races as much as he should have, with all the hype behind him. There's another driver that I can would put in the same category, but at the same time, he does have that leadership, and maybe a change of scenery is good for him. He had a lot of chances with Andretti. He won the Indy 500 with Brian Herta with Andretti. So, the win column has definitely not been a favorite for Rossi, and he does have the fan base. The fans are behind him. It is Ed Carpenter Racing, where he can go and win. I haven't seen it over the last few years. You had Connor Daly there, and a couple of years ago with financial backing, and they just weren't. I mean, besides Indy, I mean, I don't know where the team goes, outside of Indy, because they normally have pretty solid showing at Indy, and then they're mid to low teens week in and week out. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know. That would be, if I had to label Ed Carpenter Racing, it would be the I don't know team, because honestly, if I looked at it on paper, you brought up the team lineup, I would like to see between Dale Coyne Racing, Juncos Hollinger, and Ed Carpenter Racing, that those three teams would, in my opinion, be the ones I would link together to see, on a consistent basis, who's running better.
Definitely going to be interesting to see the changes that were made over at the Ed Carpenter Racing, how much they pay off in 2025. We talked earlier about Chip Ganassi downsizing a little bit when it came to Marcus Armstrong, but they did pick up Kiffin Simpson for this year. So a lot of unknowns there with Kiffin. So we'll see how he does with Chip Ganassi and that racing team over there. Last team that we want to address coming in brand new to 2025. So a huge welcome to Prema Racing. One name that you're going to find that is very familiar on this list is one Callum Ilott, who raced last year a little bit for Arrow McLaren. He's also been in the Juncos Hollinger camp as well. And then somebody that I'm unfamiliar with, hopefully Michael will be able to clue us in a little bit on this guy, but Robert Schwartzman is going to be driving the other car for Prema Racing in 2025. So definitely new to the sport, but they're not new to racing. Definitely a rich tradition when it comes to Prema Racing, just not in IndyCar. So going to be curious to see the eyeballs that are going to be on Prema Racing making their debut in St. Petersburg the first weekend in March.
Yeah, I don't know much about Prema Racing. There, I know. I heard at Media Day, Schwartzman talk. He seemed like a good guy. Him and Callum Ilott seemed to be getting along at the media event that of the interactions that I saw during the press conference. So look forward to seeing what Prema can bring to IndyCar. I know they have a rich history of racing in other circuits. So Michael, can you fill us in a little bit more on Prema Racing and Robert Schwartzman?
Yeah, so Robert comes from the Formula side of things, Formula Endurance, FIA Endurance. He has had some Formula One time with, I believe it's Alpine. So if you follow the F1 side, you're looking at Alpine. It's that kind of a developmental driver. But Prema, all over the world, they race. They're a racers race team. They race everything FIA related. So the endurance season last year, Schwartzman, he ran 8 races in the FIA endurance, won one. He finished 9th in their standings. So and he had one podium as well. Very interesting to me. An interesting choice. There has to be some loyalty there. But Callum Ilott, I was big on Callum Ilott when he come to Juncos Hollinger. Followed him for the 2023 Indy 500 when he ran for Juncos Hollinger. And I had a good lengthy conversation with him about his car, and just the feel he has for a race car is just incredible. That was the year, I think it was the Thursday before bump day. He wanted to go back to the previous chassis. He said the new chassis was just not good. There was something fundamentally wrong with the chassis. They couldn't get speed out of it. They almost missed the show because there was no speed in that chassis. And they went back. They took his word on it. They said, "Okay, we'll go back to the chassis." And the previous chassis, he ended up making the race. I think he finished 17th or 18th. Had some pit road problems, but he knows the feeling of a race car. So I think that's big especially for a new team. Looked like he had pretty decent practice runs down at Sebring. So it'll be interesting to see how that team progresses throughout the year.
Yeah, it definitely will for sure. But I think Prema had no choice but to bring in, if you want to call Callum a veteran driver, because I think it'd be tough to start a new race team if you just have 2 rookie drivers. So Prema picking up Callum Ilott and Robert Schwartzman. So that does do it for our new drivers, new faces in new places. So we just have a few more minutes left. I know we want to get into some of the preseason testing that just took place at Sebring the past 2 days. But I know before we get to that, I know Michael has alluded to a host of new changes that fans are going to see in the 2025 season. So, Michael, you want to run down those real quick?
If I can hit the unmute button, I can go through those. So big thing that I think everyone's going to get hung up on. I hope Fox doesn't beat it to the ground too much. Is this charter system, and all it does is it guarantees spots for the full-time teams, except for the Indy 500. That was a big thing. I know a lot of people were up in arms about that, but the chartered teams are not guaranteed a spot in the Indy 500. They're guaranteed a spot in every other race except the Indy 500. I think that's the big key thing. We can probably move on from charter talk. A lot of people like to talk a lot about the NASCAR one. We're not going to get into that. Schedule adjustments. This is actually one of the really cool things for me. Looking at this, actually was released today. Long Beach, Mid-Ohio, Iowa, Toronto, and Nashville are all getting extensions to the lap count. Long Beach, their lap count is going to increase by 5 to 90 total laps. Mid-Ohio is extended by 10, giving that 90 laps. Iowa is both races are lengthened to 25 laps to make it 275 laps. Toronto gets an extra 5 laps, bringing it a total to 90. In Nashville, the season finale is going to get 19 extra laps, going to 225 laps. Very excited about that. I think when you look at that, it just gives more excitement. I think that was the big thing there, was the excitement around it, adding more laps. Whenever I can get more racing, I'm all for it. A couple other things with the schedule. Thermal Club is now a points race, as well as Milwaukee is losing. It was a doubleheader, and it is no longer a doubleheader. It's just going to be one race. That will be on August 24th. So they only have one race now, instead of the 2 doubleheader races. If we look at a couple other things, safety update. I think this is just alluding to different things safety wise. Whenever a car now is in a serious crash, and they classify that as 65 Gs or more, they are going to take the seat and the seat belts and make sure they held up. Is there something that needs to be improved? Maybe a mounting position, things like that. Just to make sure that the driver is safe. The cocoon held up that they sit in. So those are things. There's a new fuel monitoring system that really is. The fans aren't even going to see it. They're not really even going to care about it. It's more of an engineering thing. Engineers want to know how much fuel is being burned, things like that. So it'll help kind of calculate that a little bit better. Another interesting thing is the tires. Everyone loves tire talk. I think that's Josh's favorite topic. He loves tires. With Firestone, they're going to get additional extra set of alternate tires for practice sessions, but they're going to reduce one set of primary tires from the allocation at each race. So I think I love when you have to conserve your tires. So for me, this is a big thing. I hate, when you bolt on a set of Firestones and they're like my street tires that I could you run 90,000 miles with. I want tire wear. I want the drivers to have to make the car last for a full run, or even a little bit longer. So those are good things in the future. And then I think this is something that's been lost. I think this should have been a crucial thing that for safety. A lot of talks last year. We talked about it. It's when the caution lights come out, or a local yellow, that's the bigger one. A local yellow will now be displayed inside the cockpit of the car. So drivers know when there's a local yellow, if there's an issue and, coming up and in a turn where they're not there yet, but, they know there's an incident ahead. I think this come into play at Road America, I believe, was a big part of it last year, where there was a crash and then a couple of cars come flying in there. So anything that we can do to make racing safer is definitely key. And I'm sure there's tons of other rule changes that will be announced in the coming days or weeks before the first race at St. Pete. So just keep it tuned here for any of those crazy rules that some people care about. Nerdy guys like me that follow the sport really closely really like that stuff, but some of the fans just tune in to watch cars go around the track.
Definitely a good rundown of the overall changes that have been made going into the 2025 season. And just a side note, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you would have seen Josh adjust himself in his seat. I thought he was sitting on the edge of his seat when Michael brought up about tires, because that is the one thing. If Josh pays attention to anything during a race, it's the tires that are used and the allotment of tires that are used. So he definitely was sitting on the edge of his seat when Mike touched on that. Just a couple things here before we drop the Push to Pass podcast. I did mention earlier that we did have some preseason testing that took place at Sebring International Raceway. Again, take it with a grain of salt. So it's just testing. But day one, here are the results from day one. If I do screen share correctly, hopefully I did this set this up right. Nope, I did not. Surprise. But let's go back here and day one results, and I just did the same thing again. Wow. So we're 0 for 2 with this. So let's try this. Let's give this one more shot here. Let's see if I can get this set up right. And there we go. As you see here, day one of testing for 1,311 laps completed. It was as follows here. Let me make this a little bigger for everyone. Hopefully that did it. But you're going to have Pato Award followed by Marcus Armstrong, Alex Palou, Connor Daly, Christian Lundgaard round out the top 5. Then it's Josh's favorite driver there, Stingray Robb, Will Power, Marcus Ericsson, Colton Herta, Callum Ilott round out the top 10. Then it's Kyle Kirkwood, Santino Ferrucci, highest rookie right there, Jacob Abel in 13th, followed by David Malukas, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, fellow rookie Louis Foster, Christian Rasmussen, Marcus Ericsson, Graham Rahal round out the top 20. Then it was Devlin D. Francesca, Nolan Siegel, Renus VK, last rookie Robert Schwartzman, Kiffin Simpson, Alexander Rossi, and surprise, dead last on this was Scott Dixon. So looking at this list here, gentlemen, any one of these names here, maybe outside of Scott Dixon, catches your eye with this first day of testing?
Stingray being up there is interesting. I mean, the only other one, like you said, was Scott Dixon going. I don't know how you go 4 miles an hour, but I mean, yeah, my my grandmother's scooter goes faster than 4 miles an hour. But yeah, Stingray is about the only one. I mean, like you said, take this with a grain of salt. They ran some laps. A combined 1,300 laps, but everybody didn't get that many laps in. So I think it's interesting. It's something for the nerdier guys to look at and yeah, Michael, and get a good or whatever they get out of those laps.
Well, Josh, good news. I do like breaking down the numbers, but this is what I got for you. I printed this out so I can do this. It doesn't matter. It's just practice. No one knows what's going on. What kind of fuel settings we're running, what kind of tires are we running, how long were those tires on the car? We have no idea. So that it just doesn't mean, it means there was race cars on a racetrack. That's all that means, in my opinion. We have no idea. Stingray Robb could have had, a half a gallon of gas in that thing with brand new tires and put the foot to the floorboard and closed his eyes and, got to the line before anyone else. So, testing, I love testing. I am a big component of testing. I love testing. I love practice. Practice. As much practice as we can get in a race weekend, I'm here for it. Because the more time the cars are on track, the more times fans have the opportunity to see their favorite driver doing what they love watching them do. But at the same time, preseason testing, the cars even go through technical inspection. That's another great thing to think about. So many things about Sebring testing is cool, but looking at lap times, that's for the nerdy guys like me.
Josh, I was waiting. I thought Michael was going to bust out the old Allen Iverson. It's practice. speech. That's kind of what I was kind of waiting for and kind of hoping was going to happen. But just to just to appease Michael one more time, these are the practice times, obviously, for today. And Josh, looks like Scott Dixon must have found your grandma's scooter because I believe he went a little faster on here. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's not on here at all. But yeah, he is right there. So he did find Grandma's scooter. But Will Power was obviously the quickest there, followed by teammate Joseph Newgarden, Pato Award, Marcus Armstrong, Colton Herta round out the top 5. Then it's Nolan Siegel, Alex Pillow, Callum Ilott, Felix Rosenquist, and Connor Daly round out the top 10. Then Devlin DeFrancesca, Marcus Armstrong. There it is. Scott Dixon there on Grandma's scooter 13th. Kyle Kirkwood, Christian Lundgaard, Santino Ferrucci, Alexander Rossi, highest rookie Jacob Abel in 18th, Stingray Robb, and Kiffin Simpson round out the top 20. Then it's Rinus VK, followed by fellow rookie Robert Schwartzman, David Malukas, Scott McLaughlin, Graham Rahal, rookie Lewis Foster, Christian Rasmussen, and Marcus Erickson there round out the rest of the practice participants there at Sebring. And I know Michael's got to be cheering over there because we got through practice. It's just practice. It's not a game, not a race, a race.
I printed this one out too, but the only reason I printed this one out is because Will Power's at the top. So that's the only reason I printed this one out. No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. It's just practice. I remember the quote from Iverson, but it's been so long since I seen it. So maybe Josh, you can fill us in.
We talk about practice.
Remind me of the old
not the game. We're talking about practice.
Drew Carey would open up. Just matter. All right. Before we put a drop the checkered flag on this opening third of the Push to Pass podcast, episode 70, love to do a little way early preseason predictions. I've jotted down a few names to fill in these 4 quotes that Michael proposed to us, not a wedding proposal, but proposed to us in general. First, I'm going to start with who wins in your guys' opinion. Curious to hear who wins the most races. That's the one that I've left blank so far, but I'm going to fill it in and say that Joseph is the driver that accumulates the most victories in 2025.
I am going to say Pato Award gets the most wins.
Those are both great picks. But you guys, I've been riding this guy for the last 6 months. The guy that wins the most races is Scotty Mack. It's got to be Scotty Mack. The thirsty threes are coming.
Well, to appease you, Michael, the next question was who wins the most polls? And before you even said that, I had Scotty Mack, the Meat Wagon, and the Thirsty Threes. I think you're going to win the most polls in 2025.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Newgarden. Something different.
Something different, but the same organization. I think we just know that Team Penske is going to be fast. Will Power is going to excel and assert his dominance on pole positions again in 2025, extending his overall lead. Will Power gets the most pole positions.
Next question here. We have 2 left. Who has the most DNFs this year? I went with rookie from Prema Racing. I'm going to say Robert Schwartzman.
I've changed my answer from earlier. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Stingray. I think Stingray is going to finish more races this year. I'm going to go with Louis Armstrong.
The trumpet player?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Louis
Foster.
Foster. Louis Foster. Sorry, Louis Foster. Most DNFs this year.
Oh man, that was pretty good. This isn't going to surprise you guys. It might. Mine is Christian Rasmussen from Ed Carpenter Racing.
And last but certainly not least, the question that is going to keep everyone watching this podcast till the very it's going to happen. Who wins the 2025 Astro Cup Challenge? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, how can you bet against the reigning two-time defending series champion, Alex Palou?
As much as I don't like doing this, I like variety in my life. But as Ric Flair said, you got to be the man, you got to beat the man, and I don't think anyone's gonna beat the man. I'm gonna go with Alex Palou. I think he's just too consistent. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he may not finish. He may not finish in the top. He may not finish in the top 3 every race, but he at least gets the top 5, and he's just so consistent.
Well, here's the thing. Alex Palou is no Dario Franchitti, okay? That was the last driver to win 3 consecutive championships. But he is very, very good. But again, for the last 6 months, maybe even 8, where we need Mike back, because he will agree with me. The champion for 2025 is going to be Scott McLaughlin. The Thirsty Threes have it. If it wasn't for the name of this podcast, he would have been the champion last year. That whole push to pass scandal at St. Pete last year cost him the championship. Will Power driving him in the door cost him the championship.
I don't think that's a bad choice at all, Josh, but I'm seeing a theme here that Michael thinks we're part of some conspiracy to keep Scott McLaughlin from winning a championship last year is what it sure seems like to me.
Hey, it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our fault.
All right, good stuff there as always. I know we kept you a little over time than what we normally do, but definitely had a lot to go over. Definitely, we'll reel it in a little bit here as the season unfolds, and we don't have as much to talk about as we have in this silly off season that just concluded. So, with that. I do see the checkered flag sitting in front of us, so that means it's time to wrap up another episode here on the Push to Pass podcast. Before we get out, I'm going to give the last word first to Josh, Michael, and then I'll get us all out of here. So, Josh, take it away.
Just excited. I'm not going to be as pessimistic this year. I got a bright outlook on the IndyCar season this year. I'll be able to watch every single race because it won't be on MSNBC or some other channel out in Siberia. So we'll be able to watch every race, and I can't wait.
Yeah, ready to get the IndyCar series going this year. Super excited. Josh, you alluded to it. We'll get to watch every race on Fox, and we won't be out in left field trying to figure out, well, we're going to this channel or that channel. We know we're going to be on Fox. And it's just getting that start time figured out. So, yeah, keep following us on social media. And Derek does a good job of putting a lot of stuff out throughout the week.
You know, I completely forgot before Josh alluded to it that that IndyCar will not have to be on MSNBC this year. Because first off, if you remember last year, I didn't know that MSNBC still existed. So I was surprised to find that out, but definitely happy that we do not have to switch over to MSNBC this year to see any lap of the NTT IndyCar series. So If you missed any of the show, you can obviously go back on YouTube, Rumble, or any other social media platform and catch the replay. A huge thank you to everybody that did tune in live this evening. Definitely without you guys, none of this would be possible. Also, huge thank you to Josh and Michael, as always, for taking time out of their busy day on Tuesday nights to join me. Definitely look forward to the third season of the Push to Pass podcast and what's going to be an exciting 2025 NTT IndyCar Series season. So for myself, Josh, Michael, everyone else here that makes up the Push to Pass podcast, we will be back We'll be back in about a week's time to maybe we'll do a preview of St. Petersburg. I'll see what we can put together right before that green flag drops the first weekend in March in St. Petersburg for the St. Petersburg Grand Prix. So until then, so